Hello, once more, everyone. Welcome back to my 2024 Big Ten predictions here on YouTube. After going 3-4 last week, in week number 8, I am now 65-23 on the year. By the way, speaking of that, going into week number 9, 8 games on the schedule, some fun ones at that, and also some surprising ranked matchups this week as well. Let's get into that and more coming up right now with the 2024 Big Ten predictions right here. Starting with our first game tomorrow night, Friday night, lights, under the lights, late night action. Out west, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Out west for the USC Trojans taking on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. USC, they're coming off a 29-28 loss to Maryland last week on the road. And you know, whenever USC has a bad season, their fans always resort to, hey, let's fire our coach. And it's happened a few times in the last 10 to 20 years since Pete Carroll was there and led a good coach a good team to multiple championships. It's happened a few times, but not this year, unfortunately, for USC fans. They are probably upset about that. But look at this matchup under the lights next week, tomorrow night. Rutgers is coming off a 35-32 loss to UCLA last week, a game I picked Rutgers to win in. I also picked USC to win last week as well. Those are two of the games I got wrong last week. Look at this matchup tomorrow night. USC, Rutgers. Rutgers comes in. They're pretty good this year. USC coming in, they're mediocre for year number 1 of the Big Ten. Playing a night game at home tomorrow night, and Rutgers having to go west. We know how the teams that have to travel from one side of the coast across multiple time zones have issues. UCLA was the 4th team. Before Iowa was the 2nd team to win. And USC was the 4th team to do it as well. UCLA did it well as well a few weeks ago. So we had multiple teams do that over the last few weeks. Dating back to week 7, which all started with Penn State going on the road to USC and getting their 33-30 win. And also Minnesota going to get a 21-17 win against UCLA. And then last week, UCLA did it, winning 35-32 at Rutgers as well. And USC was one of the teams to get the losses. So overall, only 5 wins, and I think 11 losses now for teams that have to travel across 2 time zones to get wins. So with that being said, I think USC is going to get a win here in this matchup playing at home. And they should get this win here playing against Rutgers. But both teams are mediocre this year. I think USC playing at home gets the win though on Friday night. Sorry about how long it took me to talk about that matchup. All right. Next matchup to talk about. Going to Saturday afternoon in the Horseshoe. Ohio State coming off a loss to Oregon a few weeks ago. And Nebraska coming off a loss last week to Indiana. A game which they lost 56-7, unfortunately, for the Huskers. That was one of the worst losses for Nebraska. And one of the biggest ones for Indiana. We'll talk about Indiana here in a minute. But speaking of that, speaking of Ohio State, they come off a loss to Oregon a few weeks ago in a 32-31 final score. Will Howard, the quarterback, made him run him with less than 10 minutes less and slid on 4th down and lost the game. And Ohio State players were trying to call timeout. The game was over already. And look at this matchup going in. Ohio State, Nebraska. Nebraska coming on with 2 losses. Ohio State coming on with 1. This is a matchup that could have implications on which team goes deep into the season to make the championship, I think, potentially. I do think Ohio State, though, wins this matchup, but I do not think Nebraska... I don't think Nebraska gets 1 touchdown. I think they get more than 1 touchdown this week. But you never know playing Ohio State. Ohio State can do things to you. So we'll have to wait and see, but I do have Ohio State winning this matchup on Saturday afternoon. Next up, early afternoon matchup. This one, which college game days in Washington, on the road at Indiana, 7-0 Indiana, number 13 in the country right now, ranked higher than Alabama, by the way. Alabama ranked 15th, Indiana ranked 13th. On the outside, looking in at the season end today, it would be, I think Indiana would make it maybe, possibly, but be just on the outside. But looking at this matchup overall, Indiana, Washington, they lost a few weeks ago to Iowa, 40-16, in a tough game on the road. They had a bye week last week. Indiana, they come off a big win, 56-7 against Nebraska. Playing home this week, College Game Day is going to be there. It's going to be a good game. It's on the Big Ten Network, unfortunately, so not national television, which I'm kind of surprised about. Why can't they put this in NBC's game for the night game? But I get why they didn't. But looking at this game on paper, I think Indiana and Washington is going to be an interesting game to see. Indiana beaten 7-0. Their head coach, who's in his first year, has done pretty well. I think Indiana gets a big win here against Washington, continues their run as an unbeaten team. I think they survive at least one more week to get to 8-0. I do think the Hoosiers do it against Washington. I do think Washington's going to have some issues going this time around, going to across 3 different time zones. Having to do it again, I think they're going to have a hard time against Indiana on the road this week, as I do think the Hoosiers play well. But the Hoosiers are down to their backup quarterback, so we'll see how this turns out with Indiana and the quarterback play. But I do think the Hoosiers get the win, get the job done. Might be closer. We will wait and see. But give me the Hoosiers here in this one on Saturday. Moving on, next matchup. We have the out west, the unbeaten number 1 team in the country, 7-0 Oregon Ducks in their first year in the Big Ten. And we have the Illinois Fighting Illini, another Big Ten team. Illinois ranked number 20, Oregon ranked number 1, top 20 matchup. Looking at the matchup on paper, Illinois coming off a big 21-7 win against Michigan last week. Again, I picked Michigan to win. Michigan let me down. Illinois surprised me getting one. Look at this matchup, Illinois and Oregon. Illinois, their first test at 6-1, having to go across 3 different times, having to go to the Pacific Northwest across 2 different time zones after playing last week at home against Michigan with a 21-7 win. It's going to be a tough game for them going into Oregon now here. Oregon, number 1 team in the country, we saw a few weeks ago against Ohio State, ranked number 2 overall, ranked 2 and 3 overall. That was a pretty fun matchup, 32-31. Is it going to be the same hype? I think it can and it will be the same hype that it was back when they played Ohio State. I think Illinois coming in. I think Oregon will have a comfortable game to win, but I do think Illinois is going to compete in this matchup, but we'll have to wait and see how Illinois does playing out west on a Saturday afternoon. Should be a fun matchup to see on paper. I'm going to pick Oregon, though, but I don't think it's going to be a 1-point finish like it was against Ohio State. I do think Oregon gets to win comfortably here by 10 or more, maybe. But I do think Illinois stays in it for most of the game on Saturday. Moving on. We have Minnesota coming in. They're taking on Maryland this week. Taking on the Terps of Maryland as we look at it. Minnesota, they were off last week. 2 weeks ago, I did pick them, I did pick them to beat UCLA. Well, matchups on paper, UCLA got a loss. They was 1-5, 1-5 or so. Now 2-6 now, or 2-4, I don't remember at the moment. But look at this matchup, Minnesota, Maryland. Maryland coming off a win, 29-28 against USC, comeback win. Minnesota coming off a 21-17 win. And overall, Minnesota, in the last few games, they won 24-17 against USC and beat UCLA 21-17. And they're coming off a bye week. So you beat 2 of the West Coast teams, you come off bye weeks. And you get to play Maryland this time around at home. That's an interesting debate. Maryland come off a 21-28 win. Will Maryland be as good as it was last time around, or will it be tough for Maryland to go to Minnesota? Minnesota's shown that they can win games, and then they also lose some games as well. Minnesota's one of those teams. What are they? That's my question about Minnesota this year so far. And I think I'm going to stick with that question. What is Minnesota made of? What's Minnesota going to do? How are they going to get a win? What are they going to do to get a win? And how's Maryland going to win? That's another question. Maryland and Minnesota, they're 2 teams I'm questioning right now. I will pick Minnesota to win this game, though. I will stick with another home team. So give me the Gophers over to Maryland this weekend on Saturday afternoon. Moving on, next matchup. Out in Iowa City, my Iowa Hawkeyes, my favorite team, playing against the Northwestern Wildcats. Northwestern and Iowa, these two teams have had success in years past. They both can win games. these two teams have been the last two that make the Big Ten title game over the last 5 years or so. Over the last 5-6 years, Iowa's went 2 out of the last 3. Northwestern's went multiple times as well. And also looking at this matchup on paper, looking at this matchup as the teams play each other on paper. These two teams have had history against each other where they've played where they have one-score games, like last year at Wrigley Field when Iowa won 10-7. They had a last-second field goal with like 20 seconds remaining, and then they had to kick off and give Northwestern the ball back. Northwestern only had 14 seconds and didn't score and get down the field. And looking at that storyline again, Northwestern Iowa, these two teams, Kirk Ferentz and Iowa's head coach has had issues with Northwestern in his career. I've been to multiple games where these two teams have played, where it's been Northwestern that's won, and there are multiple games I've been to where Iowa's won. And like there will be one year where one of these two teams is a good team, and the other team gets a chance to win. That's one thing I'll say about Northwestern Iowa. It's like a rivalry that's not really a rivalry that people don't talk about. And that being said, this is a matchup that could go either way, I think, on Saturday. Northwestern had a good team, surprise team last year that played well. This year they're having a team they're not playing well at the moment, but I think they can play well. So, look at this matchup. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think Iowa gets beat by 12 points this game. If anyone's going to win, I do think Iowa will get a chance. I think Iowa playing at home against Northwestern this year. I think Iowa gets the win here on Saturday. And with that being said, give me the Hawkeyes in this one, surprisingly. Not a surprise, but I do think Iowa bounced back from their loss against Michigan State, 32-20. So give me the Hawkeyes there, this one on Saturday afternoon. Moving on to the first of 2 night games here. In Ann Arbor, Michigan, the Wolverines taking on the Spartans. It's the big brother versus the little brother. These two teams this year, Michigan's having a tough year with 3 losses so far after losing to Illinois last week, 21-7. Michigan State, they're coming off a 32-20 win. They're 4-3 as well in the conference. Both teams 4-3. And it turns out the rivalry, the Paul Bunyan Trophy, one team gets it, one team doesn't. And I kind of like how these two teams play well with each other. And they've had many times that they can win games. And I'll tell you right now that Michigan State, this rivalry is a rivalry game. I think this year there's going to be a surprise with both teams being 4-3. Michigan has both teams has first-year head coaches. Michigan's head coach coached them last year, went 6-0, and this year not real. This year having a tough year for Michigan State. They're 4-3. The first-year head coach having a tough year as well. Both teams are in a rebuilding phase with new head coaches. I'm going to predict this right now. I'm going to say there's going to be an upset. Not really an upset because both teams aren't ranked, but I think Michigan State gets the job done on the road this weekend for the first time in I don't know how many years. So give me the Spartans here on Saturday night in prime time for an upset, by the way. Hope you enjoyed upsets. Next up, we're going to Madison, Wisconsin. The Badgers. They're taking on the Penn State Nittany Lions unbeaten. Nittany Lions, one of the final remaining unbeaten teams in the Big Ten, or one of the final 3 teams remaining in the Big Ten. Penn State, they're going to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, they're not coming off a bye week. Penn State, they come in this week and under the lights in Madison. The Badgers, they have had upsets against teams that are in the top 25. I don't know how this game's going to fare from Wisconsin. I think Penn State. I think Penn State's going to have a great game. Drew Aller, the quarterback from Penn State, he can play well. He does good. Wisconsin, they have a backup quarterback right now because their quarterback's out for the season. His career is most likely over. I think it's going to be an interesting game to see. This weekend, on Saturday night, I am going to take the Penn State Nittany Lions to remain unbeaten in the Big Ten this week coming up. So there you have it. Going with Penn State this week on Saturday night in prime time. That being said, that's the Week 9 Big Ten predictions. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to comment below who your favorite team is playing, if you think they're going to win, if you have liked the Big Ten. And also, don't forget to watch, like, subscribe. Don't forget to tell our friends as well to do the same if they haven't done so. And with that being said, have a good day. Stay safe and peace out. I'll see you right back here on Thursday next week. Week number 10 next Thursday. Big Ten predictions. Right back here. See you then, everyone. Bye for now. Stay safe and peace out. And thanks for watching. Bye, everyone. See you next week.